Welcome, Central City Church. Here we are in front of the whiteboard for the last time, at least for a while. Today is our final conclusion to our series on our core values. And what we've talked about each and every time is the world is a messed up place. It's full of evil. It's full of brokenness. It's full of sickness, wars, natural disasters. The cosmos is messed up and humanity is messed up. And we all know there's got to be a better way, right? There's got to be a utopia. And we think if we were just in charge, if we could eliminate everybody who's not like us, then we could have utopia. But time and time again, humanity has tried to achieve that and failed. And that's because we have no power over our own sin, over our own brokenness. And that's the Christian message. That Jesus came from this perfect kingdom. And He brought the kingdom of heaven near. And through His death on the cross and His resurrection, He made a way for us to be forgiven of our brokenness and to become citizens of the kingdom of heaven. And He left and He promised to one day come and restore all things. In the meantime, He left His followers, the church, to continue the work of the kingdom. To reflect the ways of Jesus, to live out the ways of Jesus in this world. And that means we need to make important to us what was important to Him. Now, what is important to Jesus? That's the question we've been asking. These are our core values. What's important to Jesus? Jesus wants us to be a people of prayer, that we connect with God on a regular basis. People of prayer and people that love people, all people, not just the people we like, but love all people. And then finally, we proclaim the kingdom, proclaim the good news of Jesus to the world. That's one way that we love people, to let them know that this exists, and through Jesus, they can have hope and hope eternal. And as we turn to Jesus and follow Jesus, then it's really important that we produce fruit, that we actually look and behave like people that belong here. Right? People that belong in a place of justice and peace and love. And that brings us to one of those pieces. Peace. Finally, this is where we're at today. Our final core value that we're going to talk about. Last time we talked about producing fruit, and I mentioned many of different fruits of the Spirit, and peace is one of them. So why am I highlighting peace? Because this world needs it. I don't know of a time in my life where there's been such a lack of it in my culture here in the United States. Not to say that there hasn't been conflict and disagreement in the past, but it's reaching a fevered pitch. Politically, racially, I mean, so much animosity and chaos and hatred and disdain for each other. And much of that's done in the name of Jesus. Much of that is being perpetuated by the church. And that's not the way of Jesus. The way of Jesus is peace. And here's a passage that we read earlier on in the series from Colossians. It says, "For God was pleased to have all His fullness dwell in Him." Jesus had all the fullness of God. He embodied it. And through Him, through Jesus, to reconcile to Himself all things. See, God was separated because God's kingdom is perfectly just and perfectly loving. He was separated from His creation because of our sin, because of our brokenness. So Jesus came to reconcile all things, whether things on earth or things in heaven, by making peace through His blood shed on the cross. Through the act of Jesus on the cross, He made it possible for us to be reconciled to God. You should realize that Jesus came as an ambassador of this kingdom to make peace. God is a person of peace. So when we turn to follow Jesus, we need to reflect that. And listen to what it says in Colossians chapter 3. It says, "Therefore, as God's chosen people, holy and dearly loved, clothe yourselves with compassion, kindness, humility, gentleness, and patience. That's countercultural, right? Is that the way the world is behaving right now? No. Bear with each other and forgive whatever grievances you may have against one another. Forgive as the Lord forgave you, and over all these virtues put on love, which binds them all together in perfect unity. Hear that? Unity is what we're being called to. Let the peace of Christ rule in your hearts, since as members of one body you were called to peace. Now, he's talking to the church here, to those of us who have said, I want to follow Jesus. And as members of the church, what he's saying here is we need to, in humility and patience with each other, that we're going to bear with one another. What's that mean? That means that we're going to have conflict, because the church is being compared to a body. A body has many diverse parts that do many diverse things. And as people that come to Jesus, we have different backgrounds, different life experiences. We might come from different cultural backgrounds, different ethnicities, different ways of looking at the world, both good and bad. And what he's saying here is that we bear with one another. We learn to reconcile with each other. Isn't that interesting? But it says first, I think here's the key. It says, let the peace of Christ rule in your hearts. Now, so he's talking to a group of people, but any group of people is made up of individuals, right? So as an individual, I need to first let the peace of Christ rule in my heart. My goodness, many of us, we're conflicted within, aren't we? We have conflict. We want to do right. We sometimes do wrong. We're inwardly conflicted. Well, it's important that we take care of that, isn't it? In the Old Testament, the word that is often translated into peace in the English language is the word shalom. The shalom of God. Now, shalom can mean peace between, say, nations, right? But most often, peace is defined as a completeness, an inner tranquility, a wholeness. See, we are called to first be people of shalom, the shalom of God, that individually, as we allow the peace of Christ to rule in our hearts, and that means we surrender to His rule. We can't have the peace of Christ rule in us unless we surrender to it. So we surrender to the peace of Christ and let it rule in our hearts, and then let it rule in among us as a community of believers. Church, that's what we need to be. We need to be people that work out our differences in love. We bear with one another and forgive each other, because we're going to let each other down. We're going to have differences of opinion, and it's really important that we learn to be people who live that out among ourselves. So first, my heart. Second, among the community of believers. But then what about those who aren't believers? What about the people outside the church? Are we allowed to then, argue with them and hate them and want to get rid of them? No. No. Matter of fact, I'm going to lead you to Romans chapter 12. Romans chapter 12 gives us a good glimpse of how we are to behave outside in the culture at large, okay? All right, let me get to it. Romans chapter 12 tells us this. Do not repay anyone evil for evil. That means in the culture at large, if we're treated badly, it says don't repay evil for evil. Be careful to do what is right in the eyes of everybody, if it is possible, as far as it depends on you. Live at peace with everyone. As far as it depends on you. Now, sometimes it doesn't always depend on us, right? Sometimes our way is so countercultural that we're going to be vilified. We're going to be, look at what humanity did to Jesus, who was the perfect embodiment of justice and love and peace. They murdered him, okay? And he said, if you follow me, you can expect to have the same thing happen to you, to be persecuted in my name. But it says that if we are persecuted, we don't punch them in the face. We don't repay their evil for evil. We always want to do the right thing. And then it goes on to say, do not be overcome by evil, but overcome evil with good. The antidote for evil isn't more evil. Sadly, in some sectors of the church today, they are repaying evil with evil. But that's not the way of Jesus. And as Central City Church, we're not always going to be perfect at it. But we need to be people who reflect the way of Jesus. And the only way to be people of prayer, people who love all people, people whose lives proclaim the good news of the kingdom of heaven, people that produce fruit and look like citizens in the kingdom, people that embody peace, that live out peace. The only way we're going to do that is by keeping Jesus central and all we strive to be and do. And listen, I don't want you to misunderstand me. Peace is not often passive. Sometimes to be a peacemaker, that means we get tangled up in the chaos of opposing views. But our goal is to be a peacemaker in those situations. A person of peace doesn't mean that we shrink back from what we believe in. No, we need to stand firmly on those things. But how we combat the culture is going to be very, very different. It'll be with love and humility, taking on the nature of a servant, just like Jesus was. And finally, peace doesn't mean that we agree. It doesn't mean that I have to just agree with everyone. No. Peace means, even in the midst of this, I can let the shalom of God, I can be complete even if the world around me is not. I can be a person of shalom, and then I can then be part of a community that embodies that shalom of God. And then when we go out into the culture, even when we're faced with persecution, even in the midst of a combative political system where people are just throwing stones at each other and trying to eliminate the other, we can be so different just by reflecting that one fruit of the Spirit, peace. So peace out. Central City Church, this is now what we are called to do. And again, we're not going to be perfect at it. That's why it says, bear with one another, forgive each other. It just means that we don't give up on each other. That we don't give up on each other. Amen? Yeah. Hey, if you're watching this and you're not part of Central City Church, but you'd like to be, or maybe you're just curious, check out the link below, centralcitybismarck.com. We have ways that you can connect with us. There's a connect link. We'll pray with you. If you just want a prayer request, you can fill out that connect form. We'll be happy to pray with you. If you just want to chat, we have an email, a phone number there. Reach out. We'd love to sit over a cup of coffee and share more about who we are and why we do what we do. If you'd like to join one of our gatherings, we're a small group right now that's setting out to build a church that makes an impact for the kingdom of heaven here in the Bismarck, Mandan, and Lincoln region. If you'd like to be part of that, join one of our gatherings. Again, connect with us. We'll let you know where we're meeting, which is right now we're meeting in my living room, right where I'm standing. The church is not a building. The church is the people that make it up. So, with that being said, let's be people that reflect the way of Jesus. And thanks and God bless.